Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele, and I have Kyle with me today. How
Hey
we doing, Kyle?
everybody.
We've got a interesting show for you this afternoon. Um, some things coming up, some things that have already been done, and um, I think a tech marvel. Just to be honest with you, because it's something that um, when I'm going to read some of the article to you, but it's one of those things where you go, wow, they really actually pulled that off, and considering when they pulled it off. So Avatar just continues to amaze. But before that, um, so we have a movie that just came out. Let's go right into it. No off the tops, no nothing. So we have a movie that just was released last week, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp. And so, I mean, it's made its money and it's gonna make its money. Um, so this comes from so by the way, if you want to go back and watch our spoiler cast, you can go do that. That is here on the channel. So THR came out with an article today about how this could deliver a cautionary box office win for Marvel Studios. Now you say, cautionary tale? What the hell are they talking about? Well, and yes, it made $120 million opening weekend. So what this it talks about, and it's a 4-day weekend and everything else. But what this talks about is that this movie could just fall off a cliff. And so right now it's got a 47% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is tied for one of the worst in Eternals, which came out last year. Also, it got a B cinema score from audiences, and that's one of the very few titles do so. And actually broke a streak of 21 movies that actually did that. So they're talking about nearly um, a 60 to 70% drop for this movie after 1 week. Now, in recent films, okay, of the last 5 films, none have earned less than a B minus on Cinema Score, which is important, and they've all opened to huge um, numbers. I mean, Doctor Strange opened to 170 million. You had Thor: Love and Thunder open to about 130 million. Um, so it's one of those things where this could really you could see like a 60 or a 70 or even a 75% drop um, from week 1 to week 2. So let me ask you, Kyle. Number 1, do you think it's gonna drop that much? And number 2, what happens if it does?
I think it's very possible that it has a huge second weekend drop. It's especially when any movie opens with a 100 plus opening weekend, and then you tend to see the 50 to 60% drop in its her like future. But um I I'm still kind of unsure on how it's going to go because the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty positive. It's about 84% on Rotten Tomatoes in terms of its audience score. And I could still see many people, general movie going audiences, still enjoying this film. It's not like Babylon, where that movie, it's it has a very small minority of people that really love it. Like there's a huge, I think, group of people that will love Quantumania that watch it. It's not the type of movie that when you see, unless you're, maybe expecting something more, but it pretty much gives you what you're expecting to see from it, an Ant-Man story with the quantum realm. Um what was your second question?
So my second question was this. I mean, do you think that it's one of those things where um well, let me ask you this question. just in general. Do you think that do you think that, I mean, I know this is a stretch and there is some big hype about it, and we're going to be talking about a story in a couple minutes about it. Do you think Cocaine Bear could actually, because of the drop, because of the
Mm,
rating on Rotten Tomatoes, because of the cinema score, do you think it could actually uh beat Ant-Man?
no. Do you know why? The main reason why is Cocaine Bear's radar.
Hmm, okay.
And that is a huge, huge difference in this equation because I think if Ant-Man drops, a significant amount, what it drops to about 40 million next weekend,
Mhm.
I don't see Cocaine Bear making 40, especially given that it's an R-rated, you know, film that has a very niche audience. I mean, you have like a fun audience going to see it, but you can't take the kids to it, of course. I think a lot of older folks won't want to see it regardless. And I feel like what Megan made about 30 million opening weekend
Yeah, give
or
or take,
around that
give or take.
much. So it even Megan didn't make as much. Though I think Megan was rated PG
No,
13.
no, no, it was R. It was
It
R.
was
Yeah.
okay. But I don't know. I do want to touch upon a couple things you said earlier though, because when you look at the numbers for Quantumania and you compare it to like say a Thor: Love and Thunder, a Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Doctor Strange, these are very different situations. These are, I mean, in terms of Thor and Black Panther, way more popular characters and IP franchises than the Ant-Man franchise. And with Doctor Strange is, I would say, like an how do you say it? Anomaly.
Yeah.
That because basically what Doctor Strange was is it was this multiverse film that had just released after No Way Home, which was a huge box office success. It was marketed in a way to make you think it was a continuation of No Way Home, which it really wasn't. And it starred Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, the star of the biggest TV show of 2021, which was WandaVision. So there were a lot of things going into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness that I think boosted it. Where Quantumania, and I've always said this on this channel, and I think you and Tyler both were like doubting me, and you were saying, "Oh, people are gonna see it for Kang. People are gonna see it for Kang," and I never believed that because Kang is not a pop culture character in any sense. The general movie going audience does not know who Kang the Conqueror is. They may have seen something on Loki, but even in Loki, he wasn't even called Kang the Conqueror. He was called He Who Remains. There is a big distinction between what the general movie going audience is going to see and what, you know, hardcore MCU fans are going to see. And I think the thing with Ant-Man is at the end of the day, the Ant-Man movie, despite it being a film that was connected to the MCU, was a movie that starred many characters that we had seen before in the MCU. It wasn't an MCU film that I think a lot of people were as hyped about, like, say, a Doctor Strange or a Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And the thing about this movie is, I still think that the numbers it made are actually really good because you're seeing that it, in terms of Ant-Man openings, it's just gone up and up. So more people are interested in this franchise than ever before. Um, but with this second week drop, this will be very telling on what general movie going audiences think of this movie. Because, I mean, personal problems aside though, like I usually would see an MCU film a second time the week after I see it opening weekend. I still haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania for a second time. Now, I kind of do want to see it again, but I'm not rushing out to see it again for a second time like I did with Wakanda Forever, like I did with Doctor Strange, like I did with um heck, even Thor Love and Thunder. And that could be also telling of the film itself. So there's a number of, things to discuss when it comes to this movie. But next weekend will definitely be where we, you know, pay attention because I believe Thor Love and Thunder had a 68% second weekend drop. And that was a huge deal because that showed you a lot of people were not happy with that film. Um, but yes, I think the drop will be larger. I don't know, how much you can compare it to other films when I think generally going into it, this film wasn't as, talked about or discussed as a Wakanda Forever or a Multiverse of Madness. So,
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I think that when you have a movie like an Ant-Man, um, couple things. Number one, I think that once you get to a point that people, I mean, we're 15 years, over 30 films into this, people are going to go see the movies regardless. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. And I think Marvel's gotten to the point where, and I've said this before, where I think they could just, I would rather see quality over quantity. So instead of, let's say, 10 television series and films together, put out five, but make it good. That being said, 100 million, $120 million is really good considering that, like I said, Doctor Strange made almost 190, which, by the way, almost made $1 billion worldwide. Thor: Love and Thunder made almost $800 million worldwide. Um, I think that I, I think the drop two is gonna be there, right? It's always gonna be there. Um, if this drops, look, if this drops 50%, that's they'll be lucky because of the fact that they have, um, I mean, the problems, and we've discussed it here on the channel, and everybody else has too. That this is one of those things that, you know, this really wasn't that good of a film, okay? It really, really wasn't, but they got away with it, and they're able to get away with it now. Um, so a 60% drop, I could see it, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, to your point, I think Cocaine Bear is going to be fun. It's not gonna be and that's what it is. It's a fun movie. It's like a, Violent Night, if you will. Okay, it's a fun, violent, bloody, you know, mixture. So, but let me ask you guys, what do you guys think? Do you think that, this is a significant drop? Do you think the significant drop tells you something about Ant-Man and the Wasp? Um, did you guys go to see Ant-Man and the Wasp? If you did, how many times have you seen it? What format did you see it? When did you see it? Leave your thoughts down in the comments section for us, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so our next story, speaking of Cocaine Bear, Cocaine Bear is coming out this week. And I remember seeing the trailer for this the first time, and I went, "What? Really? They're actually making a movie about this?" So anybody who doesn't know about this is a movie directed by Elizabeth Banks that is about no, I should say loosely based, okay? Loosely being in quotes. Loosely based on a true story about a bear that ate a shipment of cocaine. And you go, "What? How did the bear didn't die?" Yeah, it died. So essentially what it happens is it goes on a full bore, unbelievable rage This is actually Ray Liotta's last um, performance before he unfortunately passed away. So um, basically, the article in THR goes into how they had so much fun bringing the bear to life. And as I said, this is, what it was about. Um, and so they actually nicknamed the bear Cokie, and it was done by Peter Jackson's company Weta, and which actually did King Kong, Lord of the Rings, Avatar, and a bunch of other films. And they had an absolute blast seeing this. Um, and this stars Kerry Russell. Help me out here. He was in Solo.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Thank you very much. O'Shea Jackson Jr., Margot Martindale, and Jesse Tyler Ferguson. And so this looks like an absolute blast. Um, Number one, does it, what do you think about the movie? And number two, are you going to go see it?
I'll say the same thing that I said when the first trailer dropped. I have absolutely no interest in this film. I could care less. It is a film that I think I have the same amount of interest as many critics on, film critics have towards like MCU films. It's a movie that I just think looks terrible. I don't think it looks good at all. I don't think it looks funny. It just does not look like a good movie. I hope that a lot of people have fun watching it, but this is a movie that I honestly like. I'm sure you've had this, with other movies too, David, but like it's just a movie that when I see the trailers, I'm like, this is not for me. This, and maybe it's because of the trailers themselves, but it's like I'm not laughing at this. I don't find this funny. I just find it kind of, I mean, you can say, oh, it's stupid, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, uh, it's not a movie for me, and I have no intention on seeing this.
So really, um, so it's one of those things where it's so whimsical, it's so out there. It's one of those, oh, I can't believe that type of thing. Really, that really happened. And I get it. I mean, it's so stupid. It's I won't say funny because it's not funny, but I think this is a film that in 5 or 10 years, this is gonna be one of those movies that everybody's gonna look back on and go, "You remember that movie Cocaine Bear?" I mean, I think it's gonna become a cult classic. I really, really do. And I think it's gonna be,
We'll
I mean,
see.
right now in the time, I don't think, you know, um I don't think it's gonna do that well. I'll be honest with you. I agree with you. I mean, it's R-rated. It's not the best cast in the world. The story's iffy at best. Um, I just, it's so out there. It's like they really actually made this
I'm
movie.
surprised you said that Weta worked on the VFX on this
Yeah, they
bear.
actually did. They actually did the effects for Koki, the bear.
I was watching the trailers. I thought the effects were pretty poor. So maybe they've
Really?
just been, they've spent their time working on Avatar. I don't know, but like
Wow.
I was shocked to hear that because they look, in my opinion, they look quite cheap. Like they didn't. Maybe it's just because it's this bear doing these things, and I know that it's not real, but it just to me, I don't know. I've seen some social media reactions that have been positive, but
Now let me
David, did
ask
you
you: is
hear
it
that they're
because you?
holding the review embargo until the day the movie
Oh yeah.
releases?
Well, I mean that's
And
always a
I mean,
problem.
this isn't a film that
But
it's
see,
going
that's
to
the thing
get.
though. You have to be open minded. You have to be open minded when you
No,
go
no,
into
but
this
what I was
kind of
saying,
movie.
what I mean is like, yeah, yeah, but like this isn't a movie that would have been nominated for Oscars or
No,
such.
no, no,
It's a
no.
movie that really, if you look at a lot of comedies, a lot of like infamous comedies, especially when they come out, I believe like a Step Brothers, for instance, it might get terrible reviews, but at the end of the day, then it becomes a classic. And I
Hmm.
think there are a number of comedies out there that a lot of people really love that when they came out. So reviews for this movie don't really matter. I just personally don't think it looks good, nor do I want to see it, which
Yeah,
is
no.
rare. Like usually, like if I see a movie, like I am open to giving films a chance, but for some reason, like Cocaine Bear, every time I see the trailers, I would rather watch. No, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say
No,
it.
go
But
ahead. Go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead.
and
Now, you already started
would
down
I
the path.
rather watch would I rather watch Jurassic World Dominion? That's a
Well,
question that I
I
have
mean,
to ask myself when I see the trailers
yeah, but see,
for
the thing
Cocaine Bear.
is, this is a one-off, right? This is a one-off, and it's one of those things where, they're never gonna make a sequel, and Jurassic World is, dinosaurs, and I mean, yeah. So I get it. As far as it, I mean, you have to go into this kind of movie with an open mind. You have to go into this thinking, okay, this isn't going to make that much money,
Yeah.
and and that's like I said earlier, you got to view it like a Violent Night type of thing, and it's one of those things where it's so out there, it's so crazy that okay, so I mean, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I'd go. I'll be honest, I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. I absolutely do want to go see it. I know going in, this isn't going to be anything big, but I'm intrigued.
I think if I
Um,
remember when I first heard about the project, it was intriguing to me. I think that might have been like I was like, "Ooh, I was intrigued by it." But then when I actually saw the trailers, that's the power of like trailers
oh well,
themselves.
they're marketing,
If you
right?
watch a trailer, it's the trailer's job to get you excited
Well, exactly.
about the film.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, because it failed to get me excited. So um
Well, I
that's
mean,
a very
the first
interesting.
one is, the first one's just to introduce you to it. The second trailer is basically to get you a little more hype for
Is
it,
there ever a
saying, "Hey,
second trailer for this movie?
I don't know. I don't think so."
I
And
only
that, by
remember
the
the
way,
first
that's
one
smart.
actually.
That's a smart move.
Man,
But yeah. So, what do you guys think? Are you looking forward to Cocaine Bear this weekend? Are you going to go see Cocaine Bear this weekend? Um, I can you compare it to any other whimsical, crazy, out there movies you've seen recently? Um, leave your thoughts down in the comments. I'm dying to hear what you guys have to think about this. Okay, so let's move on. So here's a little movie that came out in December of last year. Just it did okay, I guess. Um, and it was an amazing movie. Kyle, you've gone to see this how many times?
77. No, kidding.
I wouldn't doubt it. So that's where
I'm
Cameron's getting all the money.
I've seen it. I think I've seen it well really four times in its entirety. I think a fifth time I was going from theater to theater, but it was really four times I
Okay,
watched it.
so 4 times.
Yes.
So this is and by the way, guys, you can go back and watch our spoiler cast about it. It was unbelievable. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I saw it in 3D. Unbelievable movie visually. I mean, it look. There's a couple of no brainers here at the Oscars. If this doesn't win visual effects at the Oscars, there needs to be an investigation.
Yes.
Um, but I'm going to read you this article from THR, and this I saw this morning, and it blew me away. So this is behind the screen. This is going to get a little techie and nerdy for those people that like this stuff. So the headline reads: Avatar: The Way of Water team race to create 1,065 delivery versions for theaters. So the Herculean effort to make James Cameron's groundbreaking Avatar: The Way of Water deliver the movie to theaters around the world for its December 16 day and date release was the subject of a day-long series of panels presentations Tuesday at the HPA, the Hollywood Professionals Association tech retreat. A sold out crowd of 750 tech leaders, developers, and suppliers got a look at the unprecedented initiative to deliver the movie to theaters undertaken by Disney, 20th Century Studios, Cameron, and producer John Landau's Lightstorm Entertainment and their suppliers. With digital cinema, theaters vary greatly in their screening capabilities, and Cameron and Landau were bullish about delivering the best possible experience to each individual theater. In the case of Avatar The Way of Water, this involved the creation of a whopping 1,065 unique delivery versions of the movie.
Wow.
The unheard of number of deliverables include combinations of 2D, 3D, HDR, and 4K. Very light levels, aspect ratios, a high frame rate of 48 frames per second, and range of audio formats, 51 languages supported with subtitles, and 28 languages supported by dubbing. For subcontext, the typical Marvel tentpole, take Ant-Man and the Wasp, for example, involved roughly 500 deliverables, which is already a very high number. So that essentially means they put out twice as many in that time. Um, so it's very unknown. So Kim Beresford, VP Integrated Planning and Motion Pictures Operation at Walt Disney Studios, explained that in order to meet the delivery date, the movie was effectively divided into 15 reels, allowing the team to begin creating delivery elements before the 3 hour and 12-minute movie was locked in. Roughly 800 versions of the movie were QC quality controlled in the final 5 days of release. We didn't have to we didn't have the movie together until about 16 days before the release.
Wow.
We moved reel by reel because we couldn't wait, she said. In all, she reported that this meant they creating 6,338 portions of DCP, digital cinema packaging, which is the equivalent of a film print. We turned our operation into a 24/7 support model, said the VP, Mark Arrays. And then basically it gets a little more techy and goes on to say, that they wanted a 3D and 48 frames per second um, home release, which they're working on. And then it goes into all the tech stuff about the cameras and everything else that was done. So let me ask you this question: when you hear this, when you hear what they did and how they did it, what is that? I mean, I don't know if you're a big behind the scenes guy, but what does that mean to like getting that out and doing those kind of numbers?
Well, it makes you just really appreciate the work even more, and not just the film that you're watching, but the people that worked on it, because a movie is made up of hundreds, thousands of people working on the film. And as we've seen, in fact, a article that was released today on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania detailed on the visual effects on that film and how that worked out. You start to see sometimes, or a lot of the times in the case of the VFX industry, their work and the value of those workers gets overlooked. Those workers aren't sometimes what you would expect the focus should be placed on. I mean, you're talking about people that are literally contributing to the way the film looks. And they, like, you have the director, you have the actors, but if they don't get their job done, then the film isn't going to look as good as the director, the producers, anyone wants it to. And I always find it interesting when they announced when they finished the film, and to say that this film was finished 16 days before it was released, which means it was finished, I would assume, either the very last day of November or maybe in December. It was literally finished the month that the movie was released. You're talking about a film that, when people were buying tickets, wasn't finished yet. You're talking about a film that, when they release trailers, these films aren't finished yet. And a lot of times, like, it's movies like this, these big VFX heavy films that really I just look at and I say to myself, oh my God, how much, work is put into it. That's why, like, I'm not saying that one film is more important than the other, but a lot of the awards consideration, you have to look at Avatar because the amount of work put into that film is just insane.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I remember seeing it in 3D
Yeah.
and I just went, "Oh my god." I mean, it just pops and it's one of those things where you go, "This is visual effects. This isn't."
Yes.
I mean, even with motion capture today,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're one of the big things, and this is why, I mean, you take a game like The Last of Us, which use, motion capture, and
Yeah.
this is the same thing. And we're not even talking about the underwater scenes. I mean, that itself is unbelievable. I mean, what he did and how he did it and I mean, I think it was you that told me Kate Winslet holds the record for
Yeah.
being able to hold her breath for 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
I mean, Tom Cruise only did it for 7 and when he
Mm-hmm.
jumped in the thing. I mean, nothing
And it
to
was
say
the
that's an
same
incredible
guy.
feat.
The same guy that helped Tom Cruise learn how to do that was the same guy that helped Kate learn how to do it. So
Yeah.
you're
I
talking
mean,
about,
it's just
oh,
this movie, and I know, I mean, we haven't gushed about it in a while, but my God, when you hear these statistics, like
it
they
makes you want to
created
watch it again, doesn't it?
1,065 prints
Yeah.
I mean, for 2D, 3D, HDR, 4K, and then the range of audio formats, 51 languages, which is not with subtitles. That's not easy, guys. And 28 supported by dubbing. I mean,
I
that
remember when the first Avatar was released, they actually had an interesting technique where they went into every theater. I don't even know how accurate this was, but they said they went to all the theaters that were showing the film to make sure that their equipment was in check, that their audio system was in check, and that was something that they wanted to make sure that any theater you go to see Avatar, this was back in 2009, any theater you go to, you're getting the best possible experience, audio quality wise, screen wise, and I don't know if they did that for this one, but I mean,
oh, I'm
they
sure they did. And I'm
they
sure they
yeah,
look, if they QC'd all of the prints and did it that way, that they were really, really,
yes.
really meticulous about everything and cutting it, and they were 10 times as meticulous
And
as they were back in '09.
I want to ask you this question, David,
Go
because
for
I
it.
mean, this is a bit, it's it's related to it, but it interests me because I mean, I guess it's the same thing when it comes to like an Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, but it just seems to me when I'm looking at December releases, it's gotten to a point lately where we're seeing films like a Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Spider-Man: No Way Home, this, where they're releasing these big movies, Aquaman,
And we're
in
not even we'll
December.
do a story about Aquaman and the screenings about that probably another time. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's I mean, do you think that, like, I guess the studios now, they realize how much money a movie can make in that time period and they're like, let's release our biggest movie at this time.
Well, okay. So to answer your question, I think it's this. I think it's the holidays. I think they
Yes.
realize that it's November and December is the holidays, and so when you're able to get um, a Wakanda Forever or a Black Panther or whatever it is, when you're able to do that, okay, and actually make money. Now, grant to truth be told, um, I don't think anybody knew how big that was going to be. But to your point, take a look at Star Wars: Force Awakens, for example.
Yes.
That was a tentpole movie. It was the first movie that had been released since Revenge of the Sith. Okay, so you're talking about over a 10-year window, and it was brand new
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of things, right? It was not the Skywalker saga. Um, and you couple that with holidays, and you couple that with the buzz, and you couple that with the temp. It's one of those things where, you know, now with an Aquaman, it's a little different, okay? Because Aquaman is, yeah, it's DC and yeah, it's comic book, but it's not one of those
Yeah.
Trinity, if you will, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And it's, you know, I think people were looking forward to the movie. And so I get what you're saying. And Spider-Man No Way Home too. I mean, all you got to do is build off. We were talking about Ant-Man earlier. You can only really compare Spider-Man movies from John Watts to one another. It's got to be apples to apples.
Yeah.
You can't take I don't know, some MCU project and compare it to Spider-Man No Way Home. You just can't. It has to be apples to apples. So let's say, we were talking about the drop for Ant-Man earlier. You got to look at the drop of the Ant-Man, the last Ant-Man and the Wasp, to this drop of Ant-Man and
Yes.
the Wasp. So when you say, okay, well, it dropped this much or that much, you go, oh, okay, I understand why. So December, and it's the other thing too. It's right around the corner. It's a brand new year. It's, all this stuff. So I think people, they want to not only hit the ground running, it's essentially they want to hit the ground running for the next year. That's what it is. They start out big and they end big. So I mean, so that's why I think, and we've got another couple of big movies coming out in November. I
Yeah.
mean, the Marvels just moved to November. I was reading a piece in the Wrap today. Um, you're gonna have two Disney movies competing against each other. Okay, and this is the third time that this has happened, and they've grossed a lot of money. So that's going to be fascinating to see. But getting back to Avatar, this is just one of those movies that is it's a phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal movie. I can understand why this is made so much. And by the way, it's not just overseas, it's here domestic.
Hmm.
This movie's made an insane amount of money here in the States. And the other thing I'll say to your point is this: I think it depends on what else is out, right? If you have nothing else to compete with, then you're going to blow up every day. So you're going to have a run until, I mean, a perfect example of that is, I mean, until you had Avatar: The Way of Water come out in December, everybody was looking forward to February because there was really nothing in January to stop it. And it had legs and it just kept going and going and going and go. I mean, hell, about a month ago, it even went up, what, 6%? How many films do you know go up after the fourth or fifth weekend release? It doesn't happen.
It
It
makes
never
you
happens.
it makes you look at Quantumania, and you have to like wonder what's the difference between a Quantumania and an Avatar,
Story.
because
Story.
that's a
Hands
good
down,
one. That's
uh, no doubt in my mind. It all starts with the story. Because if you
and
don't
also
have
the visuals. I would say
right,
the visuals
well, the
too.
visuals, but here's the thing: the visuals were a no-brainer. You were
Hmm.
going to see Avatar first and foremost for the visuals. The story was secondary. You wanted to see more of the story, sure, but it was the visuals because the wait had been so long. You're like, this better blow my socks off.
Yeah.
Um, but to your point, if you don't have a story, if you don't have stakes, if it's not compelling, I don't care. And if I don't care, I checked out. Now, I can suspend disbelief to a certain extent, but at some point, I'm going to check out. And if that story's not there, so that's what I would say. And James Cameron, and we've discussed this many times before, he is one of the best storytellers of all
Mm-hmm.
time. Whether it is a Titanic, whether it is a Terminator 2, whether it is an Aliens, whatever it is, he is one of the best storytellers of all time. So I think that's the difference
And also, like,
because
if you look at Ant-Man, Ant-Man also deals with a family. But the thing is, and you hate to say it, but you care more about the family in Avatar than you
yeah,
care about the family in
that's not to say
Quantumania.
Catherine Newton wasn't good. She was okay. But I mean, you go on Twitter now and half that stuff's memes. Whether it's Modoc or, some of the script writing and whatever else, it's like, really? Try not to be a dick? I mean, who thinks it's like that scene? one of the greatest scenes, and I still don't know how it actually got filmed. One of the greatest scenes of all time is the end of Venom when he walks into the convenience store and no shit,
I did not,
no
David.
shit.
I did not expect you to say that
And
when you
so he
said.
walks in and he's, chocolate and tater tots and whatever else. And then what ends up happening, she's getting robbed. And it's like, the whole line of a fart in the wind. How does that actually get put on film? How? That's what I mean. My point is this. You take a look at that and you take a look at something like Don't Be a Dick and you go, oh my God, how does this happen? And yet, because it's Marvel. And that's the only thing I can think of because it's Marvel. And because 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're going to look back at that scene in this, especially that scene, and we're going to be laughing about it 5, 6, 7 years from now. Go, they could never write this down. So, anyways, guys, Avatar, it's just an amazing movie. And so when you I know we kind of got off the course there, but once you hear how they were able to put it together, and they're still putting it together 16 days out, um, just incredible. What did you guys think of? I know I've asked you this before, and I want more of your feedback. What did you think about Avatar: The Way of Water? Did you think that, you know? Did you think that, do you like it? Obviously, you do because you went back to see it multiple times. But seriously, what do you think about them being able to put it all together like that in the formats, in the dubbing, in the audio? Do you appreciate it more now that you see that on screen? Um, how many times have you guys gone to see Avatar? In what formats? Would you go back and see it again? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Okay, so we're going to get to the last story of the day. And today's last story is about a series on HBO Max that came out last year, and that was House of the Dragon. And House of the Dragon, everybody was looking forward to this series because for a couple reasons. Number one is Game of Thrones. Number two, as far as a Game of Thrones fan, anything could have been better than what they put out for the last season. Anything. Um,
I beg to
and
differ.
so I think that when you hear any little breadcrumb about House of the Dragon now, you're all over it. You're jumping all over it because you can't wait. House of the Dragon is one of those series that HBO hit a home run with. And so this is one of those things where they absolutely want to get the second season out. So this comes from, and we just got some news on this. So this comes from Variety, and um, so it says there will be no dragons before its time. With production of season 2 of the Game of Thrones prequel House of the Dragon just underway, HBO and HBO Max content CEO Casey Bowles confirmed that sometime in 2024, quote, is a good guess, end quote, for the hit series to return, although he's mum on the exact time of year. But here's a hint. Boyle said it's a quote, good guess, end quote, that the show won't be eligible for the 2024 Emmy season, which ends its eligibility period May 31st, 2024. So you're expected to see it in the summer of 2024. And so he goes on to say, my philosophy is a good script is priority number one. I'm not doing this based on what I having one to have one a year or 2 a year. I want it to be based on the scripts we're excited about. So he goes on to say that remember to get House of the Dragon follow ups from Game of Thrones. We've developed a lot of shows, shot a pilot, a bunch of scripts, and we got House of the Dragon. To do that again is going to take the same amount of effort. You have to develop a lot of things, try things. You never know what's going to work. So currently, we're doing that. I'm not opposed to any number of shows. There's probably a natural limit to how many fans want, but I'm open to as long as any we feel that the scripts are really good about the good about the scripts and the prospects for a series. It's going to take a while that one that hits a mark. I know that George R. Martin feels the same way. You want to do one everybody's really proud and excited about. So, I mean, this is one of those franchises that has been on HBO and HBO Max for many, 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 many years. Okay, we're talking about this ran 7, 8, 9 years. I mean, really, when you're talking about shooting and everything else, almost 15 years. Um, and the ratings, while the ratings were through the roof for the last season because it was the last season, it wasn't the best. All that being said, um, so let me. I know you're kind of a fan of this, Kyle. Let me ask you, what did you? And I, truth be told, guys, I have not watched House of the Dragon. I got through 2 episodes and I just stopped watching it. Not because I didn't like it. I just other things to do. Um, so let me ask you, Kyle. Number one, are you excited about the news that we might see a summer 2024 release? And number two, um, do you think it's going to be better than the first season?
So, as a massive fan of House of the Dragon season 1, I cannot wait for season 2. I thought House of the Dragon was the best show. Um, there's like no contest. It was the best show of 2022, and I I will say that I'm a little bit worried about season 2. And I don't know if you're aware of this, David, but the showrunner left this show.
Right, I
One
did
of the
hear this.
showrunners, the co-showrunner, left this show. Miguel Sapochnik, who is actually largely responsible for a lot of elements of season 1. One of them being the original idea for this series was that it would focus on the king and the prince. So King Viserys and Prince Daemon. And they have this relationship in the series where they are very much they're brothers, but they feel, you know, very much like sometimes you don't know whether they are best friends or sometimes you don't know whether they aren't. And what happened was Miguel Sapochnik's wife actually suggested, you know what, instead of focusing it on Daemon and Viserys, why don't we focus on Rhaenyra and Alicent? That is a major reason why this show is as good as it is. The relationship between Rhaenyra and Alicent was outstanding, and I think Miguel leaving this show worries me a little because Ryan J. Condal, who does the show, he did a wonderful, magnificent job on it, and he wrote a number of things, and he was great. But how does, you know, a a ship run without, or no, how does a plane fly without its co-pilot? Or I mean, I could say I think of
No,
another
I know the
analogy,
analogy you're trying
but
to get at.
it's like I'm very curious to see what they do, and I hope they maintain the same level of quality. They certainly will when it comes to the performances, but I don't know. So I'm really looking forward to it. Um, The one thing I am a little bit saddened about, because I understand, with flashback, with the way that they told the story, they're gonna continue with Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook in the future of the seasons. But I really love Millie Alcock and Emily Carey as young Rhaenyra and young Alicent, and I am hoping, some way, somehow, they are either incorporated in this season again, where we maybe get flashbacks, or, and this is my crazy idea, and I wish I could go up to the head of HBO and pitch it to them. They do another show where it takes place in between the years that we don't see.
Yeah,
in
a filler
in the
season,
sphere.
so to speak.
Yeah, and it focuses on those characters because, listen, I love I love Emma Darcy and I love Olivia Cook. But this show, season 1 of House of the Dragon, is as much, Millie Alcock's and Emily Carey's as it is Emma and Olivia's. Even if you look at it, Millie was in even more episodes than Emma was. And I think Emma is amazing, and I cannot wait to see what they do in season 2. But man, I want to see more of Millie and Emily. So I don't know how they would do it. I think there was a rumor that they might still be a part of it, but that's something I'm very curious about. So I'm still really excited. There's a lot of great stories that are going to continue based on the book that it's based off of, and we'll probably get 2-3 more seasons out of this. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's also a long wait too, because when it comes to television, it used to be, you'd get technically 2 seasons in a year. Not 2 full seasons, but you'd get the end of one season at the beginning of the year and the beginning of the other at the end of the year. That's how TV used to work. But now you have to wait about 2 years for the show to return. And some people aren't going to be too happy about that, because they're going to be like, wait, where's the show? Even Game of Thrones, it would only be about a year wait. Then the final season took about 2 years. But it was funny because when the final season of Game of Thrones took about 2 years to make, everyone was like, oh my goodness, this is going to take forever. We can't wait that long. And now that's become the traditional.
They jumped on it as soon as it happened.
Yeah, that's the traditional wait now for television. Shows take 2 years to come out because they shoot these shows kind of like movies at this point, where they're making a movie and then it takes about 2 years. That's what happened to Westworld. Westworld was a show. I think what should have happened with Westworld is if they shot it much closer, they could have finished the series. But because it took them so long between each season to tell each storyline, it ended up where the show is now canceled because they didn't want to spend another bucket load of cash to make the next season. So yeah, I'm so excited for it though, because it is my favorite show, and I cannot wait to see these characters and these actors come back, because they took the world by storm, and that was something that a lot of people did not expect to see when House of the Dragon started. These characters
absolutely.
are like Game of Thrones levels of popularity, and that's when it comes to prequels. That's not an easy thing to accomplish.
So this is actually from somebody in our chat, basically saying that Loki they're really eager to see Loki, and so actually speaking of seasons and I know we were talking about shows that haven't been done yet, and that have you watched Loki? Are you
Oh
excited
yeah,
for Loki season 2?
I cannot wait for Loki season 2, and I have to say that's another example, right, of a show that took 2 years for them to continue. And it's funny because Loki's going to be the very first Disney Plus series, at least Marvel series, that gets a second season. And that's a rarity, because a lot of the Marvel shows that Disney Plus did were limited series.
They were just one-offs.
and
Like
I don't know if that.
WandaVision or
Yeah, I don't know if Loki was planned to be. I think it was planned to be multiple seasons, but they
well,
were
I think it
very.
must have been because they
Yeah.
had that clip
Yeah.
at the end of Ant-Man.
Well,
So,
no. I mean, like, because they, when it comes to some of these shows, they said like a limited series or they
right,
said like
right.
WandaVision. The reason why they have that clip there, spoilers for Ant Man, but the
Yeah.
reason why there's a clip of Loki and Ant Man and the Wasp, it's because that show has been filming for the past year and they can
Oh,
put it
okay.
in there.
Got
And
it.
I do wonder at what point they were like, we'll make a second season. If I remember correctly, it might have been pretty early in the process because they did interviews where they said, "Oh, we're looking at a second season um, of Loki."
Yeah. No, and he goes on. They go on to say Loki was a main part of Phase 4, and will set up most of the stuff. And I think they mean Phase 5. No, yeah. I mean,
No, Loki was in Phase 4.
oh, okay, in Phase 4. Yeah, I mean, it's really curious. See, that's not to go off on a tangent. That's one of my big things about Marvel right now. You have to watch everything. You have
I
to. I mean,
disagree.
like,
I disagree.
well, that will be another video for another time. But um,
That'd be a
one
great
of the
video,
things
actually.
is that not going in, not seeing. Like, I never saw WandaVision. I never saw Loki. I never. So, I mean, I kind of had an idea, but it's one of those things where,
But David, let me ask you this: when you see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness,
mhm.
are you saying to yourself, "Boy, I should have watched WandaVision"?
Nah, nah, I mean,
And
I
you
only
know,
got through the first two or three episodes. It
it's
was,
actually funny to me because a lot of the people that are saying that, oh, you need to watch the other shows, are people that haven't watched the other
no, I know
shows.
that.
And
But
the
when you're
people that
covering everything,
might
it
say you don't
gets,
need to watch the other shows are people that have watched the other shows.
mhm. No,
So
I understand.
it's I think it's a misconception because unfortunately a lot of people that say that just haven't watched the shows. They don't know what they are actually connecting. I think the best thing that can be said is that the shows themselves is really like basically giving you a like a more detailed explanation
Yeah, a
of the
bigger picture,
world.
a
But
bigger.
if you want to just watch the movies and enjoy them, you do not have to watch the shows.
No,
And
yeah,
I think that is still why Marvel is still at the top because if they made if they truly made these shows, where a cliffhanger happened in a film that would be resolved in a TV show, that is when you get to a point where you're like, wait a second, now it's getting confusing. But
yeah,
Marvel has not really done that.
yeah.
What's this comment? Coco
Every Marvel
mentions.
movie is just mostly a setup at this point, leading to something bigger. It's not a terrible thing. I just want to go. I just want to go back
I think
to
Coco
not having
shares your
to
same
watch
sentiment.
everything. Yeah, I mean, look. Here's the thing. For the Infinity Saga, okay, and I know this was really before the development of Disney Plus and everything else. You could go into any film and watch a post credit scene and really go, miss the next two or three films and then go into the next film, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and then you're right up to date. And now with the exclusion of like a Spider-Man No Way Home, but without delving too deep into this, all of these other movies, the last couple of movies, with the exclusion of Thor, okay, Multiverse of Madness was like an extension, okay, to a certain extent. I'm not saying absolutely to No Way Home. Then you have, you know, this Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, I haven't watched Loki, so I don't know if they exile him. I mean, I do know of the Time Variance Authority. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so do they exile him?
No,
Do they exile Kane to the quantum realm in Loki, and
that's not
that's where
even
we see
mentioned.
it? I don't know.
Nope.
So,
No,
um,
I was listening to John's show last night, and they were talking about how there's now a continuity era apparently in Loki where it's so like I mean like it's funny to me because like a lot of people that love WandaVision don't like Multiverse of Madness because they feel like Multiverse of Madness kind of, I don't know what you would say,
yeah,
retconned or messed
yeah,
up WandaVision.
yeah.
And once again, you don't have to watch the
No, no,
TV
no, no.
shows
I
to
know.
understand the
But you
movies.
don't have to. You don't have to. But they're kind of hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And it's one of those things where you don't have to, but we're recommending that you do because that's the thing. They want you to absorb and eat up as much
Mm-hmm.
Marvel content as you can. Because look, I mean, and we went to the story at the top of the show, okay?
Yeah.
Ant-Man made $120 million, okay? And it was one of the first films, one of the
Yeah.
5 last films to not make to not get that A rating, whether it was A plus, A minus, or an A. Okay, they can put out subpar material,
Yeah.
and that we both, we did a spoiler cast about them. There was a bunch of problems in it, and excuse me. And the fact is that it's not. Look, not everything's going to be a Civil War or Black Panther. We
Yeah.
understand that, but at the same time, they've gotten to the point. And I'm going to use the analogy of baseball. They can basically get base hits every time, and it's just they're just putting this stuff out. And you and I and Coco here and everybody else, they're gonna go to the theater because it is Marvel. It is the name. And then when you couple that with the Disney Plus stuff, with the Loki and the WandaVision and Moon Knight and everything else, you're just eating more and more and more and more.
I want to
So
address, so Coco mentioned like half of the movie is part of setting up something new, like how in Wakanda Forever, the Ironheart side story didn't matter at all to the main story. I disagree because the Ironheart story was the main story. The whole point of the movie was that Namor wanted
yeah,
to kill Ironheart, and that is why it set place the conflict because Ironheart had created the machine that was built in the water that seeked out vibranium, and therefore they ended up starting the rivalry there. So I do
yeah.
think it affected. I will say that um looking at, say, how about Julia Louis Dreyfus character Val, she was in here and it's like, oh, you could take her out of the story. That one I think I
Well,
could understand a bit more, but
and
yeah.
that's the thing. Like if the way and you just said it, if you can take a character, if you can write something and then remove that character and the story still functions and it still works and it's still
Mm-hmm.
cohesive,
Yeah.
then guess what? You don't need them. And that was like I'm blanking on his name, but you had the other character they were going back and forth with. You didn't need him. Martin Freeman, thank you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
didn't need
That
him.
whole side plot.
Yeah, you didn't need him at all. So I get it. I understand it. Maybe it was a contractual thing. I don't know, probably. But when you
Mm-hmm.
start inserting characters into places you don't need them, it needs to be, not that I'm any writing expert, but it needs to be a little more tighter. And so if you want to understand Marvel now, you need to commit to watching most of the movies or you will not understand most. But I think there's too much stuff to watch. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Look, here's the thing. I think that you have to watch the movies, if nothing else. Okay, that's why they're making these events. And by the way, um, just to say one last thing about Marvel is this: the reason why Marvel is so good, or one of the reasons why Marvel is so good, is because of their writing. Guardians of the Galaxy was a hit in 2014 because it was emotional. The writing was great. James Gunn did a phenomenal job. However, whatever you thought of Guardians 2, but that's because most people, and I'll say most, not all, most people, okay, they will put Guardians of the Galaxy in their top 5 of or top 7 films of the MCU. And that's just because it worked and because it was emotional and there was story behind it. And by the way, and we're going to be doing a video about this when it comes as it rolls along. Infinity War, I didn't realize this. Infinity War is turning 5 years old this year. Did you know that, Kyle?
Wow. I think I did. I think I
Yeah,
did. I try
April
to repress
28th.
it.
April 28th.
I'm more struck, David. I'm more struck by the fact that next year, The Force Awakens will turn 10.
I know.
That one for me, it's like,
I mean,
wait,
Jedi, and we were
what?
talking about this off camera. Jedi's turning 40.
I'm so sorry, David. I am so sorry for you. For
Yeah,
me,
I
I'm
know.
like,
I know.
I'm afraid, when Phantom Menace turns 40, that's gonna be for me where I'm like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. No,
oh
but it's
boy.
just one of those things where it's just, it's crazy when it's we got War Games, we get the right stuff, we got Return of the Jedi. There's a ton of other movies from 1983, but yeah. So okay, guys. Um, thank you everybody that stopped by. Thank you for the comments. Quick side note: we are going to be recording the perfect movies for March very soon. And Heat. Um, and one final comment by Coco. He says, now James Gunn is working for DC, and I'm happy for him now being the head of the DCU. And I'm not trying to make this Marvel show in DC. No, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to say. I was just reading somebody said something today about what they could do as far as marketing is they could crash the party. He could crash the party
At
on
Comic Con.
May, yeah, Comic Con on March. And I thought to myself, now that's because why
I
would
think
if you wrote and directed that, or even the weekend after, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. You wrote and directed Guardians. Why would you
no,
just
no. I
because you're
think
going to work for another? That doesn't make
Comic
any
Con makes
sense.
sense because that would be in July, and I think, I think that David, I think that's where we'll get our Superman.
Yeah, no, and by the way, that up and they said not they I from one of the other things they said it was going to be we're getting more in the summer, so it's going to be
Yeah, I
interesting to
think we'll
see.
get. That'll be crazy if he
Oh
just
no,
starts out. Hey guys, you want to meet your new
oh yeah. By the
Superman?
way, yeah. So but it's so we are going to be doing a Heat. We're going to be recording Heat for our perfect movies in
Mhm.
March, and then next week we're going to do actually a week prior to that. We're going to be doing Creed. We're
Mhm.
going to be doing all the Creed movies, the 2000, the first one, the second one, and then on March 4th, we're both going to go see Creed 3. We're going to come
Yep.
back here for the channel on March 4th, and that's a Saturday, guys. I'm going to do the Creed um, 3 spoiler cast. And then don't forget on the 5th, guys, come back here on the 5th. We have The Last of Us.
Mhm.
So that's going to be fun. Um, And then, so we've got a ton of stuff coming up here on the channel.
Thank you,
Thank
Coco,
you
for
very
this.
much, Coco. I appreciate that. And you're going to be looking forward to a number of great spoiler casts and every series. So March 1st, don't forget we got the Mandalorian starting. We are going to be doing Mandalorian spoiler cast. I've got to catch up on the first 2 seasons. So you're going to be getting that. The first couple weeks of March are going to be crazy, crazy. Um, and Yeah, and then May is Guardians. June 2nd is Across the Spider Verse, which I've got to see the first one. We've got June 9th is Transformers. The 16th is The Flash. The end of the month, the 30th is Indiana Jones. So I believe it's the same day it comes out. Oppenheimer and Barbie come out the same day. And then we've got Mission Impossible. And then, of course, one that you are looking forward to is it's coming out on Netflix. I think you were telling me, right? That the Teenage Mutant Ninja
Okay.
Turtle movie is coming
No,
out.
no, I think it's actually going to be a live action theatrical film.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay.
not live action, animated
Right,
theatrical
right, right,
one.
right, right. So that's coming out in August. We got a ton of stuff for the rest of the year, guys. Um, okay. So thank you very much, and thank you, Coco, for that. And guys, if you stop by for a couple of minutes, hit that like and hit that subscribe button because this is the only way it's gonna get out, and we want it
And
to get out to
share.
everybody.
Let people know that this channel exists.
Exactly. Okay. And I can't wait for this. I cannot wait to see what's coming up. And we're gonna have. And by the way, guys, you can follow him on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, and we're always doing spaces. So
Yeah.
please feel free to pop in. There's the handles. Feel free to pop into any of our spaces. Say hello, and yeah,
Spaces on Twitter. Twitter is where
yes,
you find them.
yeah. And we're doing. And yeah, we got a bunch of stuff. Okay, guys. So thank you very much. Do the 3 things you need to do. Be safe, be careful, and take care of yourself. He's Kyle. I'm David. And you have been watching Real Talks. Bye bye, guys.
Bye bye.